My name is Elvaretta Orlin Jayasaputri from SMP Negeri 5 Yogyakarta. Today, I will deliver a story about the raven. I will perform as the princess who turned into a raven. Enjoy! Hi, I'm a daughter of a queen. When I was little, I would like to run alone. One day, I was very troublesome and my mother could not quiet it. She grew impatient and seeing the ravens flying around the castle. She opened the window and said, "I wish you were a raven and will fly away. Then I can have a little peace." Suddenly, I turned into a raven and flew away through the open window. I flew to a dark wood and remained there for a long time. Meanwhile, my parents couldn't hear anything about me. Long after this, a man was making his way through the dark wood and heard me calling. He followed the sound of my voice. As he drew near, I said, "I'm by birth a king's daughter, but now under a spell of some enchantment. You can, however, set me free." The man asked, "But what am I supposed to do?" I answered, "Go further into the dark wood until you find a house. In that house lives an old woman who will give you food and drink, but you must not take off either. If you do, you will fall into a deep sleep and be unable to set me free. In a garden behind the house, there's a tall tent heap, and on that you must stand guard and wait for me. At 2 o'clock, I will fly there for 3 days. But if you fail to keep awake and I find you sleeping, I will not be set free." He promised to do everything I wished. So he walked and walked until he found the house. The old woman met him and said, "Poor man, how tired you are! Come, let me give you something to eat and drink." But the man refused and said, "No, I will not eat or drink anything." But the old woman won't leave him alone. She urged him, saying, "If you won't eat anything, at least drink a glass of wine. One drink counts for nothing, right?" Finally, he allowed himself to be persuaded and drank. As it drew to the appointed hour, he went outside to the garden and mounted the tent heap, stand there to wait for me. Suddenly, a feeling of fatigue came over him and he was unable to resist it. He fell into such a deep sleep that no noises in the world would be able to awaken him. At 2 o'clock, I flew to the garden, but before I reached the spot, I sadly said to myself, "I know even now that he has fallen asleep and he is not able to help me free." When I reached the spot, I found him as I had feared, lying on the tent heap, fast asleep. I called him, I shook him, but he still continued sleeping. So I flew away, left him asleep. This similar situation also happened for the following 2 days. But on the 3rd day, after I found him asleep and was unable to help him awake, I placed beside him a bread, some meat, and a glass of wine, of such a kind that however much he took of them, they would never grow less. Then I took a golden ring off my finger and put it into one of his. Finally, I laid a letter. After giving him particulars of the food and drink I had left for him, I finished writing a letter that said, "I see that as long you remain here, you will never be able to set me free. But if you're still willing to do so, come to the castle of Stromberg. This is well within your power to accomplish." Then I left him and flew to the castle of Stromberg. When he awoke and found himself had been sleeping, he was grieved at heart. Then he saw the things that were lying beside him. After he read the letter, he knew from it all what had happened and what he must do. He rose up without delay, eager to start on his journey to the castle of Stromberg. But he had no idea in which direction he had to go, so he traveled for a long time in search of it. One night, he saw a little glimmer in front of him. He went towards it, and it turned out that the light came from a house which in front of it was a giant. At first, he was scared, but after a while, he summoned up courage and bravery to went forward. When the giant saw him, he wanted to eat the man. But then they made a deal. The giant will leave the man in peace, but the giant got the bread, meat, and wine that will never grow less. After the supper, the man asked the giant if he could point him the way to the castle of Stromberg. It turned out that the castle was 1,000 miles away. Luckily, the giant wanted to help him by carrying him about 100 leagues of the castle. The man thanked him and journeyed on for days and nights. After he found the castle of Stromberg, it was situated, however, on top of a glass mountain. Then he saw me, flying around the castle, then came in. He was overjoyed to see me and longed to get to on top of the mountain. But every time he tried to climb, he fell back again because the sides were too slippery. Because of this, he was greatly grieved. So he built a little hut for himself to remain for a whole year. One day, he saw 3 robbers fighting each other. He went to ask them why they were fighting so angrily at one another. The first person said that he found a stick that had the power to open any doors. The second one said that he found a cloak which rendered its wearer to be invisible. The last one said that he caught a horse which can go to any obstacles, including Glass Mountain. They were confused whether they should keep together with the things they had in common or whether they should separate. On hearing this, the man said, I will give you guys something in exchange of those 3 things. But I have to prove what you're saying is true. So the robbers made him get on the horse, and they gave them the stick and the cloak. When he wore the cloak, he was no longer visible. Then he fell upon them one by one using the stick and said, There, you idle vagabonds! You have got what you deserve. Are you satisfied now? He rode up to the Glass Mountain, and when he found the castle gates were closed, he uses his stick to open up the gates. Then he entered the castle and found a room where I was sitting in front of a goblet. He took off the ring which I had given to him and threw it into the goblet. When I saw the ring, I exclaimed, That's my ring! And if that's so, the man must be here who's coming to set me free! The man thrown off his cloak and he was no longer invisible. I can see him again. Then I turned back to my human form. I ran to him, kissed him and said, Now you have indeed set me free, and tomorrow we will celebrate our marriage. The end. So, my dear friends, the moral messages are, first, we must always keep our words. Don't say bad things to or about anyone. We don't want that bad thing to happen to us or anyone else, right? In the story, the queen couldn't hold back her words. She wished her daughter would become a raven. It happened. Therefore, we must always guard our words and hope for good things. Second, we must always keep our promises. In the story, the man failed to keep his promise to fast for 3 days. Therefore, he had to travel and wait for a long time to help the princess. If he kept his promise, he would help the princess immediately. So that is all from me today. Thanks for listening and goodbye.